This film looks at UFOs. Is there a religious, spiritual, non-physical element to them? Are they paranormal? Are they divine? Are they demonic? These are some of the questions we shall explore in this film.
Everything is interrelated. And the more we study history and the more we study current events, we see that all of these things are linked together in strange ways. That the UFOs, as most of you know who have read my books, I don't think they're extraterrestrial at all. I think they're definitely tied to the human race, and that they react to things that are happening to the human race. I don't think they're vehicles. I think sometimes people see what appears to be vehicles, but they're really hallucinatory. Whatever your belief is, these manifestations are going to assume that form.
A guy, UFOs as angels, as divine. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I think over, the last, centuries, there's been these kind of contact with either demonic or angelic, and now in this century, suddenly those kind of contact has become more linked to UFOs. So I think you need to view them in the context of, or the historical context of the time that those sort of strange occurrences happened.
Sure. I guess if you go back to the times of the Bible, especially the Old Testament, there's all these different passages that could be interpreted as UFOs. Ezekiel's wheel within a wheel, maybe that was a UFO. The flying scroll, that could be a UFO. So what you're saying is that these things basically are interpreted at the time like as a religious thing, but in fact you're thinking they might just be a physical nuts and bolts spaceship, or?
Yeah, I think so. It's just looking at because the actual experiences are quite similar.
Yeah.
From century to century, the same kind of experiences people have had, but it's just taking it and looking at that lens of that moment in history. So when religious fever was, or people were deeply, deeply religious, they're going to see these experiences through the lens of demons and angels, maybe. Whereas now, where we're living in a less religious kind of society, maybe the veneer of religion has exposed these experiences to what they actually are, which is aliens using, spaceships and technology.
I think the whole nuts and bolts thing, and then from another world, is diverting people. It's the elephant in the room. It's diverting people away from what's really going on. I think because we live in a technological age, we call them aliens, extraterrestrial craft. 100 years ago, they would have been demons and angels.
I think it's no accident, and this might be about people's psychological makeup. I think it's no accident that alien abduction experiences in the recent past actually mirror people who met earth spirits, fairies and things like that centuries ago. And there are certain uncanny parallels, like if anybody tries to take something from a UFO or the fairy realm to prove where they've been and to prove the value of what happened to them, it has a habit of melting away when it comes back to our world. So in those circumstances, you would think that it might be a similar phenomena that produced the experience in the first hand. The reason people don't see fairies now is that they don't expect it. These days they see aliens, but it might well be that the bedrock of that experience is the same thing. So, I think people are interpreting. I think there are real phenomena that we don't understand.
So I've spoken to people that say, well, actually, these are demons. The UFOs are demons, and they take the appearance the other way around from what you're saying. They're taking the appearance of UFOs and aliens as kind of deceivers, the cosmic joker, tricksters.
Yeah.
the 1950s UFO researcher John Keel, famous for the Mothman prophecies, he suggested that there was an element of this trickster, this cosmic joker, this kind of demon that was playing jokes on mankind. It's attached to us in some way throughout our history, and has always played these jokes, and it will take the form of whatever just to confuse, just to irritate us, basically. And you know, he was the first person really to take aliens and UFOs and put them in a non-physical context. He called them ultra-terrestrials, like they're from a different dimension, a different world. And that's what people said fairies were. They were from different worlds, different dimensions, and anybody who came into contact with a fairy was profoundly changed.
Yeah.
So there are similarities there.
I believe very much in, you know, are we alone? Are there alien races? You know, like most researchers go down that route, the nuts and bolts, mechanical craft, other thing. Over the years, I've maintained an active interest in researching it. I've read many authors' different works, like you probably have as well in your own research, and I form my own opinions. And what happened with me personally, I got involved with a guy called Reverend Paul Inglesby, and he was involved with who was then the Admiral Lord Hill Norton, who was quite prominent at the time, had an interest in UFOs, and basically they produced a limited edition. I didn't even say that, a limited edition little booklet here.
Okay,
back to front for you, isn't it? That's the UFO Concern Report on the Lord Hill Norton Initiative.
Wow.
And the basic of it was a closed circulation report that was sent to people of importance, as he put it.
So who would have that been, the people of importance?
It was sent to various MPs, I think heads of MOD, church leaders and stuff like that. And what it basically was...
Sorry, would Prince Philip have had a copy, do you think?
I believe he did. Yeah, he did have I think somewhere, I mean, I haven't read this for a few years now, but I believe somewhere in there's quite a long intro to it. And it basically, I don't know if you've ever seen it at all, when you've got hold of a copy. But they basically go through various concerns, cover-up defence, political, media influence, alien contact to control, abductions, guinea pigs, mutilations, Mars, scientific, religious and spiritual. It goes on and on and on. Anyway, to cut to the chase, it was quite apparent. I met Paul Inglesby at the time. I believe he's deceased now. I met him in Glastonbury. So I was invited in as a consultant. And they had various consultants from various fields. My particular expertise was psychotherapy and hypnosis and regression, which was my knowledge, and mental health. You know, is it a delusion? This person deluded. So that was my expertise in it. But having conversations with Paul Inglesby, and they basically, the book is full of reports from people around the world: France, Sweden, Germany, Canada, United States. All over the place, actually, and it sort of lists people's concerns as to what is going on, people's own thought, and also people's own experiences with either seeing craft or having experiences with so you call them entities, for want of a better word. And it was quite apparent that they believed that the phenomena was spiritual in nature. It wasn't a nuts and bolts thing. The church was concerned about it unofficially.
Right. Okay.
I 100% believe it's a spiritual phenomena, personally, from my own experience and the things I've read and people I've met over the years. And that basically, from my experiences with paranormal research, I saw a very close link. And the link was, it was several things. Focusing on the purely demonic side of it, it was the darker side of it. Throughout history, there's been, there's reports of demons and angels. You can go way back to biblical times, angels, demons, fiery chariots, and every single culture in the world reports them. And they're also very similar in appearance, either reptilian in appearance or insect in appearance. Obviously, the most common UFO, I suppose, thing we would call nowadays is the supposed UFO grey alien. Which everybody knows, partly through Whitley Strieber and Communion, and stuff like this. That's the most popular image of an alien grey. But if you go back into ancient history, and you read about, the story of alien abductions, none of them are very beneficial to the person involved.
Okay.
You know, this section of shorts in the middle of the night.
Right, yeah.
And stuff like this.
Yeah.
And it ties in very much with ancient mythology about incubus and succubus, which are demonic entities that feed off people and stuff like this.
You know, medieval times, if you saw a kind of light in the sky, you're going to see an angel, maybe.
Absolutely. Well, there's a documented case in Nuremberg in Germany in medieval times.
Yeah.
People saw crosses in the sky in terms of like a Jesus cross. It's probably, you could say it was a UFO triangle, but they've interpreted it as a cross because that's, you know, their religious fervor, I guess.
Yeah.
So, you know, going back, you know, to angels in the Bible. You know, angels by definition are extraterrestrial. They're not of this world, not of this planet.
Yeah.
They come from heaven, which again is extraterrestrial, it's out there. But these angels, you know, they're always glowing. You know, why are they glowing?
Yeah.
What's causing them to glow? And like Moses in the Bible, he went up to get to the 10 Commandments, received them from God. When he came down, he was glowing. So quite clearly says that in the Bible. So it's like these, why is he glowing? What's he encountered? This divine presence, this God, or was it an alien?
Well, we spoke about incidents involving what appears to be similar described objects going back to Victorian times, which there have been. And there's little doubt that if, jokingly I said, if we had the internet in the 13th century, we would be probably none the wiser, but we would have, the amount of sightings of strange objects then would have been brought to our attention. But of course, what people imagine in those days, particularly the medieval age, if you went around saying you'd seen golden lights in the sky, you could end up on the bloody, you could end up on the fire, couldn't you? It's just a shame that we've come all this way, and really, how far have we got without talking about other avenues of research that we've spoken to before? But I don't know. I just think it's important that people come and have a look and see for themselves. Yeah.
The phenomena, as we all know, and of course, eminent, ufologist Jack Vallee, the brilliant man himself, has considered this. And I think that, you know, we're not jumping on the bandwagon, but certainly with research shows us that the phenomena seems to be one step ahead of where we are. It will never give what it is. It'll tell lies to people that are within their presence, say whether or not it was the fairy folk back in the day, or, you know, the Venetians, or and now then the Space Brothers, and then the Greys. No, there is something very interesting, and the phenomena is interested, key point, interested in what we are, and especially with intergenerational connection links, which is interesting because most people who've had some kind of UFO experience or encounter, and we've had them at close range on a number of occasions, very close range, although we still don't know what they are, we find that it's linked with family. So I think that perhaps we're looking at something that goes beyond what we are. But the really disturbing element is, let's just take the Greys, which are in vogue and in fashion at the moment. They seem like they don't die. I mean, I know that we die, and we have to question the spiritual component or the conscious component that seems to surpass this matrix. But they seem to be on this program, and my argument, my research is, what is it that they want? What are they looking for? What is it?
I mean, I went and interviewed Randall Jones-Pugh. He was the Bufora investigator. He was a vet by profession, and I can relive these things. I'm in the house with him, and we were talking about it, and he said, "John, are you religious?" I said, "Well, I'm a Christian." He said, no, that's not what I meant. He said, "Do you take, are you Catholic, or do you go to church, and etc." I said, "Well, not really." And so he said, "Well, I admire you for what you're doing." He said, "But," he said, "don't bother." He said, "because this is demonic. This is what this is all about, demonic. You know, UFOs are demonic. And he told me about 2 sightings he'd had. And then, then I left. But he's not the only one. I've met other people that had got involved, and then one of them was the Reverend Paul Inglesby. He was a mate of Lord Hill Norton's. Back in the 90s, they bought something out, UFO Concern, I think it was called, and they wanted to raise the interest. They wanted some sort of disclosure. Well, it wasn't going to go anywhere at all, but the Reverend Paul Ingleby thought that it was demonic, so split it away from the UFO. But as we said before, come on, UFO and paranormal, surely at times they interact, so that indicates the possibility that we're talking about the same phenomena. But it's like somebody once said to me, well, hang on, if you see a light in the sky, it's UFO. If you see a light crawling across your floor at night, you think, my God, that's demonic, or that's paranormal. So maybe there is a connection. I think there is a connection, isn't there?
I tend to go back to the John Keel, these ultra-terrestrials, these cosmic jokers, these tricksters that have always been with us. That's part of the human evolution, if you will. It's always been attached to us. I think they could be lurking in other dimensions, which is physical things, but we just can't. We can't comprehend them because, they could be all around us in terms of popping in and out of existence. But due to what we can see in our visual frequency, what we can understand, unlimited brain capacity, I guess.
Yeah.
Will we ever get to it? And I think you made this point earlier that maybe we never will, and maybe it'll, by investigating these things like people have done, just either you end up crazy or dead.
Yeah.
And,
I know. Will we ever get an answer?
Now, I think these entities are demonic and masquerading as all sorts of things. They're masquerading as angels, they're masquerading as...
Yeah, sorry, let's go back to what do you mean by demonic, I guess. That's my next.
Well, the thing is, I suppose if you go back to demonic, the first thing you've got to ask yourself is, do demons exist?
Yeah.
And this is where people start getting incredulous, because obviously, you can go back through way back in time, and there's all sorts of, we were very superstitious. But the fact is, the Vatican still trains exorcists.
Yeah, I know.
So if demons don't exist, why would they train exorcists?
Yeah.
They would just say demons don't exist.
But I see what you're saying. You're coming from the kind of ancient alien view, which is these are the same spaceships we're seeing now that were seen thousands of years ago, interpreted in different ways as divine or demonic. Whereas in fact, you're saying they could be nuts and bolts craft.
Yeah. The experiences appear to be very similar. So, that paralysis being kind of like, I think there's like generally or often a kind of sexual theme to it, or
Well, yeah, the incubus, succubus, we're seen as demons, sexual demons. And then the UFO experience, you've got, female eggs been taken, sperm been taken from the man. Betty and Barney Hill had some of that, the first documented UFO case. So, yeah, maybe there's something to it.
3 former chairmen of UFORA, which is the British UFO Research Association, all of them were convinced that UFOs were of demonic origin and not nuts and bolts craft. Roger Stanway, who was one of the heads, resigned in 1976 and became a born-again Christian, and allegedly said, "I believe the UFO phenomena has satanic origins."
Certainly, one should never get wedded to a single point of view. And although the extraterrestrial hypothesis is the one that's most deeply embedded in people's consciousness when it comes to the non-conventional explanations for UFO/UAP, it's frankly, it's only one of a number of competing theories. Interdimensional, time travelers from the future, demonic. One of the most interesting things in the June 25th, 2021 preliminary assessment of UAP published by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence was the statement that there's likely not a single neat solution to this mystery. Chances are there are a number of different things going on in parallel, and that may well be the case. So as crazy as it might sound to some, for example, there is, and of course this is in your film, there is a faction within particularly the US government, but I've seen it in the UK as well, who believe that UFOs are demonic. And they get this in a large part from a passage in the Bible, in the book of Ephesians, which talks about Satan in terms of being, quote, the prince of the power of the air, unquote. And this faction, through that and maybe some other things too, have convinced themselves that this or some of this may be demonic. And therefore they say that you shouldn't engage with it. You shouldn't study it because that feeds it energy. And so it's an interesting irony that some of the pushback to serious research and investigation of this in the US and the UK government didn't come from hard-nosed, science-minded skeptics who thought it was all a waste of time and money. It came from a believer faction, but just a different believer faction, a faction that felt it was demonic and that we shouldn't study it for the reasons I've just explained. And I happen to think they're wrong, but there's no getting away their influence. Lou Elizondo, who headed up the Pentagon's ATIP program, which came before Arrow and before the UAP task force, he said on one occasion he was trying to get a senior manager in the Pentagon to take this more seriously. The guy sort of batted him away and said, go read your Bible. That's the mindset that you're coming up against, a sort of fundamentalist Christian interpretation of this.
But then again, is this a spiritual battle going on, do you think, or is that just a bit far-fetched?
It's really difficult. I mean, I personally, I wouldn't see UFOs as demonic in that sense. I mean, the issue is, and what you're going to find with evangelical Christians is, the Bible doesn't really have the paranormal in effect. I mean, there's a couple of ghosts in there, and then the fabulous story of Samuel, which I love, and Jesus, of course, is described as a ghost. By the disciples, so obviously they're aware of this stuff. It's not to say there isn't paranormal, but their cosmology and their theology is all bound up in this idea of demons and demonic entities. So and that's how it all works. And that goes right into the New Testament. That's the system is based on this idea of demonic presences everywhere. And that accounts for all kinds of things that we might nowadays call mental illness or whatever. So they're always so any kind of anomalous phenomena, it's certainly in one capacity. If you're going to read it from a biblical perspective, you're always going to put it into a demonic kind of category because that's the mindset of how the Bible works. That's the cosmology of Christian Judaism.
Going back to the demons and angels type thing, there may be good and or bad, like alien type consciousnesses. So that kind of thought scares me a bit because perhaps you'd end up contacting like a sort of evil type alien species.
I think the UFO phenomena, the paranormal are linked. Trying to prove it is a different matter. Maybe we'll never be able to prove it.
Yeah.
I'd go back to John Hansen from the UFO Learning Center, and he says you don't want to know the truth. He's been warned off.
Right. Yeah.
Saying you don't want to know, don't bother investigating it. Well, I mean, maybe it's the priest and saying it's demonic.
Yeah, leave it well alone.
There's another famous guy, a famous medium called Robin Foy. You may have heard of.
I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, he ran a thing called the Skull Group up in Norfolk, where they were doing experiments with physical phenomena. They're trying to create physical phenomena in a seance situation. Sure. And they believe they discovered some sort of new energy and can manifest stuff.
Right, okay.
And Robin Foy wrote a book, I think it was called Beyond the Impossible. It's a really thick, about 700 pages long. It's quite a heavy read. But funny enough, there's one single picture in that book of a entity that manifested to them, and it's the almond-shaped head with the big black eyes again, the alien grey. But they didn't call them aliens; they called them entities.
But that's what, as I say, when I originally spent time in the forest with Brenda and others, people used to come up to me and say, "Oh, did you just see that golden orb coming up the forest floor, or that thing in the sky?" And I thought to myself, "Oh, did you see it?" Oh, I thought to myself, "My God, they're imagining it." And then I saw these things myself and even photographed them.
What were they?
Sorry?
What were they?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, but what did they look like?
Sorry?
What did they look like?
Well, orbs floating a few feet off the floor, crackling with energy near Left at Eastgate. On the 27th of December 2000, I filmed, we were in the forest then, suddenly this thing appeared in the sky and began to rotate over Capel Green. So we filmed it, and I've got the film here. It's gone out many times, but so I can't explain that. And for me, the most strangest things was the apports of stones, because what happened, we'd go to a part of the forest where nobody had followed us because there were needed the lights. It was pitch black. And I always made sure that Brenda was first, not me, because as you go through the forest in the morning, it's covered in cobwebs, and if you're not careful, in these cobwebs is a big spider, and the last thing you want to do as going first is to get a spider on your face, because I don't like spiders. Who does? But Brenda used to go first, and there was a party of about 6 or 7 of us, and then we'd stop, and then we'd sit down, and we'd just, I don't use the word meditate, I think we'd just sit down there and be quiet for a few minutes and just relax, and then it would be black as hell out there, pitch dark, and then suddenly you'd hear something go thud onto the floor, and you'd sweep your torch around, and you'd see, you wouldn't see the stone that had fallen, but because there were stones everywhere, but you would then touch the stones, and one of these stones was so hot you could hardly handle it. Now, what life force, energy, or power, whatever you want to call it, could move a stone like that and drop it near you? And they were quite common, those.
Personally, I think they're interdimensional. I mean, I've just made some notes. I was writing down some notes this morning. I have to read them, because I can't remember. My brain's not brilliant. I put here similarity between demonic encounters and alien encounters is quite astounding. Both can appear or disappear at will in an instant. You get that with alien encounters and demonic encounters. Sleep paralysis, or the inability to move, is common in both in the middle of the night, where something comes into the room. Alien encounters, demonic encounters. Images are projected into your mind of the end of the world scenarios, atomic war, destruction, blah, blah, blah. Common to both. Levitation is common in both. In physical mediumship, which I have some experience of, I've seen tables float around the room with no apparent means of support, through an energy of some sort. A reptilian or insect appearance is common to both. I've got here. Raping and sexual molestation. Would a beneficial alien presence really subject anyone to a forced rape? No. That to me, I can't see how people can say, "Oh no, they're concerned for our welfare."
Yeah.
Really?
I'm just trying to. So you think that is there a connection between paranormal phenomena and UFOs?
Yeah, I think there is a connection. I say on the paranormal side of things, I played a couple of stories to you. When I was involved in mediumship, I had 2 very nice ladies in their late 70s, early 80s, got in touch with me through Psychic News magazine, through an article. There was an article in there at the time about physical phenomena, and we arranged to meet up. And they lived down on the Kent coast, not far from me, and they've been involved in this research for years. I mean, the knowledge these two ladies have was incredible. They was very much like me. They was open-minded about all sorts of things, all sorts of possibilities. But they were very much involved in spiritualism. They run a spiritualist circle. They with a table and a group of stuff like that. And basically, they invited me into it. Over time, we became friends, and we used to meet up for cups of tea and coffee like that. And I remember one of them saying to me, "I've got to just refer to my notes here. So I want to get this exactly right. I don't want to sort of say something I actually didn't say." Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll call them Helen and Rusty to sort of late 70s, early 80s. Used to sit in a regular spiritualist circle in their flats. And they had an entity appear one night. Basically, she was saying to me that she went into the hallway and there was a creature standing there with a large head, big black eyes, just looking at her, typical alien grey, just vanished. And I have absolutely no reason to disbelieve these ladies. They're the most sincere people I've ever met. They're very genuine. They don't publicise anything. They haven't written any books. They've got no websites. It's all really private.
So I mean, so for me, the divine I understand as a metaphysical concept, and I don't know how much you understand with metaphysics. So metaphysics is really the study of the ultimate reality. And within that ultimate reality are things such as a material world, right? But that's not the full nature of reality. A facet of reality. So the idea is that somehow we can access different elements of reality. And so by understanding the divine, we might use different elements to access this, to go beyond our material makeup.
I think that reminds me of a gentleman, Tom Trowbridge. What a smashing bloke Tom is. Tom and Chris Trowbridge used to spend a lot of time around Warminster in the 70s. And Tom is a very, very clever bloke. He designed what he called like a hexagonal copper sphere to try and pick something up in the crop circles. And he went out one evening and nothing happened. Took it home and put it on top of the wardrobe. All this is covered in the books. Strange things happened. Shadows started to appear. Things were dropping down. All sorts of weird stuff. And so there's something that bridges that gap between what we regard as everyday living and something else out there, isn't it? Whether it's supernatural, paranormal, religious, I don't know, but there's something that we do something. We can either do it, I think we do it physically, and it cracks off again. And I've got quite a few cases where people have had sightings, and they've been they've got next close to the ultraviolet radiation that these objects give off, and it's caused not only psychological, physical problems, but also disruptions around the house, where not only electrical appliances are changed, mechanical appliances are changed, clocks are messed about with, and things start appearing. So in some ways, perhaps it's a good thing that we are. Would we really, and going back to the original conversation, would we really want to know what's out there? Would we really want this to be part of a maybe everyday life? I can't say.
I mean, demonic. They're arch deceivers. They deceive.
That's the point. Is this the kind of cosmic joker trickster?
Exactly. That's a good terminology. Yeah, cosmic. I've witnessed the same thing in mediumship. I mean, I don't know what you know about mediumship and spiritualism. This basic clairvoyance, which means clear seeing, where a medium will get images in their mind. Most mediumship is clairvoyant nowadays.
Yes.
It's a clairvoyant, but it's a psychic ability that everybody has. You have it, I have it, everybody has it in various degrees. A sense, if you like, sometimes. It's just more developed in some than others. Physical mediumship is rarer nowadays. It's where you have a group of people will meet in a closed room, usually in the dark, and they will get physical phenomena. They will get lights moving around the room. They may get an apparition. I've attended a few of these purely as a guest, and I honestly, I believe what they think they are communicating with as being something good, which is not. It's something bad, demonic, pretending to be something good.
Well, yeah, I can give you my theory, as you probably know. Everybody's got their own theory. But I think there is a form of energy in the ether, for want of a better word, that's out there. We can't see electricity unless we've got dials to register it, but it's flooding all around you, it's going through your body. So there's this form of energy that certain people are either born with, or they can learn how to do it and use this energy to help, either move spirit on or create psychic healing. So to answer your question, it's always there. It's somewhere in the ether, this psychic energy. It sounds whimsical, I accept that to the skeptics, but for want of a better word, that's where it is. It's all around us.
Sure. Okay. I mean, I'm on a quest to try and tie all these things together, try and, see what this is, this mystical ether, this formless substance, this, magical stuff. Do you think it's somehow linked to the UFO experience?
Well, it's funny because I've been asked that before. Are they a crossover, for want of a better word, and that's only happened in my research only once. I can only talk about one case, and it's down in Devon. And this lady was getting bothered with poltergeist manifestations, things moving around the family home, things falling off shelves, knockings. She was getting nipped and punched and all the rest of it. It was really dreadful. And she says, we were interviewing her, and then she's talking away, and then she went, no, it's okay. I went, what? It's okay. No, tell me. I need to know anything, even though it sounds ridiculous. Please, we're here. We've travelled through London to be in Devon today. We need to know everything. You'll not believe me. We will. Well, try us. So what she said was that when she woke up, and she says, Malcolm, I wasn't dreaming. I woke up, I was wide awake. I don't know what woke me up, but I looked at the bottom of the bed, and to the left, in semi-darkness, was a small grey being. To the right was a spirit child. Like, I don't know if some of your viewers may recall a TV program called Little House on the Prairie. It's an American show. This little spirit child was dressed like that. So here's the crossover. My goodness me, we have a small grey alien in that room, in that side of the room, and then a little child there. And whilst I'm aware of other similar stories, that was the first one that I became aware of. Now, it's fair to say that that family home in the surrounding area, which was a farmhouse out in the sticks, had seen a lot of UFO activity as well. So that just wasn't a one-off, And it makes me wonder, are they truly a crossover? Some of these UFOs are flitting in and out of the sky. Does that mean that they are coming from different dimensions, as French physicist Jacques Vallée would suggest?
Yeah. So, John, can you tell us about the Broadhaven UFO?
Well, I can, yes. First of all, this is contained in the January-February 77 file. So before we get to actually the incident that happened on the 4th of February 1977 at Broadhaven County Primary School, when the kids saw, well, it gives the game away what the sort of thing they saw. But this is just January. There's a lot of interest around the Wales area with reports, but right. Seriously, these are the images these are original images taken by the kids. Wow. Yeah, and on the back is some rough information.
UFO incident in Wales.
Yeah.
And these school kids all witnessed a UFO landing nearby, and they all came out of the school and saw it. And what was amazing about it, they all went back to the classroom and drew independently what they saw. And so these amazing childlike drawings of this UFO craft with occupants coming out of it, and they all kind of tie up. And why would they make it up? I mean, it does raise the question, maybe kids find it easy to perceive paranormal phenomena because they say that, you know, kids can see ghosts easier. Maybe it's the same with UFOs. There's quite a few school sightings around the world. I wonder.
Again, like things like poltergeists as well. It's children and teenagers seem to connect to these kind of experiences a lot.
Is that because they haven't had it kind of kicked out of them by?
Maybe, yeah.
They're still kind of open to it.
I guess you're born and maybe you're purer and you vibrate at a higher level until the depressing reality of life kind of brings your vibrational level down to something that the government would enjoy more or find it easier to control more.
I've seen a UFO. Myself and my husband Carl, we were heading to Ruthin, where we do a most haunted experience at Ruthin Castle. And anybody that's going through that way from Cheshire to North Wales on the back roads, beautiful countryside. And we were there, and the roads were clear. There was nothing there. Very clear night sky. And we looked up, and Carl slowed the car down, and there were two lights in the sky, and one was above the other. Now, normally with aircraft, you'll see like a flashing red light or orange light, won't you, or whatever. There was no flashing lights whatsoever. And we slowed right down, and they were hovering there, and we thought, well, are they, what are the lanterns that people have?
Chinese lanterns.
Yeah, are they those? Then we thought, is it a helicopter? Because they were hovering, but again, we didn't see any flashing lights. And we thought, this is really odd. They're just hovering there. And then the most extraordinary thing happened. They both, at exactly the same time, just whizzed off at such a high speed. It was not possible with any flying. It just wasn't a plane, wasn't a helicopter, nothing. And we both experienced that. And quite a lot of people have experienced things on that route.
Well, you know, like personally, I was a child in Warminster in the 70s. Oh, wow. And yeah, I remember as a child being drawn out of my bed down the stairs, floating, and there was a glowing being, blue glowing humanoid thing that was there, and I was being drawn towards that. And again, very tangible, very real. I think all these people's experiences, they describe it as, because the first thing that people say is this a dream? And you know the difference between a dream and a tangible, real kind of experience. And so the glowing humanoid type, or it's definitely a kind of a connecting kind of theme across all these experiences, or
Sure. I mean, my own experience when I was a child, I had this face appear on the wall, a bit like an angel coming to warn me, but you know, giving me hope that everything would be all right. It was like this blue shining light on the wall, kind of opened up like a portal. Wow. I interpreted it at the time as an angelic experience.
My idea is that they are perhaps interdimensional. I think that is the closest that we can get to it. And people tend to try to say, well, you know, interdimensional is like ethereal, or it doesn't have any substance to it. Well, think of your mobile phone. You've got the physical hardware and you've got the signal, which is the phone. Both of those operating on different levels of what we call our reality, one in our reality, the other not. And both can interconnect with one another. So my idea is that this intelligence, or this force, whatever's behind it, is able to integrate itself or mold itself into our reality. Wow. Quite where they're coming from, we're not sure, but they must be coming from somewhere. And this is something that's very fascinating. And not just that, but we have information, or, you know, we're probably basing our assumptions on loose whims at the moment of investigations and whistle whistleblowers, but they're a different species. So my argument's always been, where are the aliens? If there is a pub somewhere, Mark, that they're hanging down, let me know, because I'll be down there to meet them and have a chat with them. So I think when we look at the multi-complexed phenomena, UFOs in one box, aliens in another, dogmen in another, Sasquatch in another, where are they? And why do these areas promote these levels of high strangeness? So I'm not sure of whether or not when the UFO comes into our reality, it seems to affect the space around it, distorting both space and time, allowing for perhaps other dimensions of reality to interlock with ours.
So there seems to be some sort of link between UFOs and the paranormal. Because what they saw, these lights, you know, you could say the UFOs, but if people see a light in a haunted house, it's a ghost.
Yeah.
And he makes that point as well. If you know, there are similarities between UFO experiences and ghost experiences, I think. So I just wonder whether science, spirituality, religion will ever kind of combine in a grand theory. This is what this film's trying to do.
Yeah.
But I think we've also got to be aware of that. I speak with author Neil Nixon, and he talks about why, as humans, in terms of our evolution, we've evolved with the need to believe in something. That came from an evolutionary standpoint, and the fact that, you know, the peoples that had a god or something like that to worship, and the crops failed, it was easy for them to make a sacrifice and get through, and that's how they evolved. And so it's been part of the human condition, and that's why he says mystery matters, that we need this urge to believe in something higher than ourselves. And he points out that, you know, he thinks UFOs, things like that, are purely just, you know, military projects that are secret. And you know, I respect his opinion. And there could be that possibility that, you know, what we are seeing is just military technology that's kept very, very secret. There is trillions spent, especially in America, on this, you know, black budget, dark ops. It's kept very, very secret, so maybe it is that. And, you know, it's even fooling its own military pilots like David Grush and Ryan Graves, David Fravor. They've all testified that they've seen, engaged with craft they can't explain, but it could be the US military testing out this technology on their own military without their knowledge, which is why they're so sincere in what they've said they've seen. So we've always got to be aware that, you know, got to have open minds, and I think there might be something more to it, but, you know, to be balanced, it could just be secret technology.
Yeah, I do believe that the search for alien civilizations should be in the mainstream of science. First, because it resonates with the public, and the public funds science. And we have the scientific tools to address this question. We can use our cameras, our telescopes, our microscopes, based on my latest expedition to the Pacific Ocean, to learn what's outside the solar system and to figure out whether we have a neighbor. The reason it's transformative for humanity is for the same reason that finding a partner changes your life. Suddenly you're not alone. Steven Weinberg, a Nobel laureate in physics, wrote towards the end of his book, The First 3 Minutes, the more we analyze the universe, the more pointless it looks. And to me, that's a sign of studying lifeless objects, objects like elementary particles, radiation, stars, black holes, and so forth. However, the minute we find a partner that is just like us, conscious and intelligent, it will change our perspective. Suddenly, the universe will not appear lonely anymore. And moreover, we can learn from our partner. We can grow in our perspective. As of now, we are investing $2 trillion a year on military budgets. If we were to realize that there is a third dimension out there, that there is much more real estate in space than there is on Earth, we might decide to explore space. And if we were to invest $2 trillion a year in space exploration, after listening to the words of John Lennon, imagine all the people living in peace. Then I calculated we could reach all stars in the Milky Way galaxy by sending probes to them, billions of them, within a century. The probes will get there within 1 billion years, but we would at least approach those stars within just 1 century. And if there is a more intelligent civilization out there, my hope is that they did it already. And we can just look at our backyard to check if any of their probes reached us and learn from those.
AI being on that massive acceleration curve, it might help us find some of those answers quicker, or I don't know. I mean, things like the technology around alien spacecraft, AI might be able to understand it better.
Reverse engineer.
Yeah.
So if the US military does have downed UFOs, for want of a better word, has it used AI to back engineer it? Maybe that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, it could be.
The 3 so-called the Pentagon videos, right? They're spread over a number of years, from 2004 to only a few years ago, and they include the most spectacular is filmed over the Pacific during a military exercise by pilots in American fighters. Yeah, right. That have come off. But yeah, so. Is it possible the Americans were testing their own cutting-edge drone technology against their own pilots? Because of all, if they're alien, then it's a totally different thing. If they were Chinese, say, they're enemy drones, it's a ridiculous place to be testing them, right? And they're not being used in anger, are they? You know, if it was the Chinese demonstrating how far technically they were ahead of the Americans, then it's odd that something filmed in nearly 20 years ago hasn't moved on to the point where it's now dominating the world. So just a guess. And then at that point, my skepticism says, well, what's more likely? Is that the Americans seeing their own technology and the people reporting it don't have the clearance to know what they're looking at, which goes back to the military pilots spotting the U-2 spy planes in the 60s. I mean, the only reason the U-2 thing was quickly declassified was that the Americans had got a cutting-edge aircraft that the Russians hadn't even considered building. And the only reason it was declassified was that the Russians managed to shoot one down, and apparently they did something that the Americans hadn't considered. The Americans had built a plane that was out of missile range. The Russians realized that to be flying that high, it had to be very strong but also very fragile. So I can't remember whether it's The Hunt for Zero Point or Travels in Dreamland, but it's one of the books that talks about ufology and cutting-edge military secrets. And apparently what the Russians did was that they sent a whole salvo of missiles off into the upper atmosphere at the same time, knowing full well they wouldn't hit it. But when these things detonated, they set up such a shockwave that the plane disintegrated, which is how come the pilot survived it. And then at that point, suddenly, all this UFO mystery about what people on civilian and military radar and what pilots were saying suddenly made a lot more sense. But it also made it very clear that all these people who've been reporting UFOs clearly did not have a security clearance, and therefore their best guess of what they were seeing was not that they were seeing American technology. It was they were seeing something extraterrestrial because it seemed to be beyond their experience. And I think that resonates with me with the drone things. I think it's more likely that they're earthbound than it is that they're extraterrestrial.
But it's interesting what's happening with the CERN Hadron Collider. That's kind of on the edge of cutting edge of physics, and it's shown us that there might be other dimensions, other universes side by side, which could also explain these things in terms of these UFOs, these aliens. Possibly come from other dimensions.
Yeah.
And I talk with this a little bit with Avi Loeb from Harvard.
Okay.
He says that would make it easier for alien life to be here if it's through other dimensions and other realities.
So in fact, within the mainstream of theoretical physics for the past several decades, the prevailing paradigm is that it is possible to unify quantum mechanics and gravity unless you work with extra spatial dimensions. And of course, we see only 3 of them in our daily life, but the idea is that the others are curled and we can't really detect them unless we shoot particles at exceptionally high energies that would probe these tiny scales. And so that has been the foundation for string theory, which has mathematical accomplishments, but yet is not ready to make predictions about the beginning of the universe, what happened before the Big Bang, and what happens inside the black hole. Of course, if there are extra dimensions, then the reality that we are familiar with extends into them, and one can imagine life in more than 3 spatial dimensions. It will be far more diverse and interesting in the sense that when you drive a highway in extra dimensions, the chance of a collision is much smaller, and there are many more opportunities for degrees of freedom of exercising your free will if we have it, and altogether I would expect life to be much richer.
Wow, okay. And do you think possibly what we're seeing in terms of UFOs and things like that, UAPs, could that be kind of dimensions crossing over into our reality somehow?
We had our science and technology for 1 century. Quantum mechanics was discovered exactly a century ago, and all the most sophisticated technologies we currently employ, such as the internet, artificial intelligence, and so forth, rely on our understanding of quantum mechanics. So one can imagine that the process of learning is incomplete. In fact, there are several major puzzles in modern physics. What is most of the matter in the universe? We call it dark matter. We don't know what it is. What happens inside a black hole near the singularity? We don't know what happens. What happened before the Big Bang? These are some of the examples, but also we don't know whether we are alone or whether there are other technological civilizations. But one thing is clear, that most stars formed billions of years before the sun. So if another civilization like ours existed billions of years ago, they had much more time to develop their science and technology. And it is possible that they would be able to figure out if there are extra spatial dimensions and take advantage of them using quantum gravity engineers. And what that means is that, if their technology is able to reach our doorstep, we would be at awe, because it would represent something we don't possess, we don't understand. Just like a cave dweller coming to a city like London or New York and seeing all the technological gadgets there, there would be a sense of religious awe, and we wouldn't fully understand what we are looking at, especially if one is dealing with the effects of quantum gravity that we have no clue about. So definitely, yes, one way for us to realize that we are not the smartest kid in the class is by encountering those technological gadgets that were produced by more advanced civilizations, and they may very well represent effects of quantum gravity, extra dimensions, things that we currently do not fully understand.
When I was doing my undergrad in psychology, and I was really interested in consciousness, and I feel like the single greatest unsolved problem of psychology, perhaps of the whole human race, is Chalmers's hard problem of consciousness. And nobody can work out where it comes from, what it is, what it's made of. And I started to get this idea that maybe it was much smaller than we ever perceived it to be. Maybe it was right down into individual particles, if you like, or molecules. And then once I started to consider that, I went, okay, well, we've been looking at this the wrong way, because macro large systems are governed by classical physics. Very, very small things are governed by quantum physics. And once you started to look at things that we would deem paranormal, like ghosts, things that can blip in and out of existence, things that seem to behave strangely, or their time seems to behave strangely, suddenly it started to make a bit more sense. And I think over the years, instead of coming away from that, I've come closer to it as science has started to progress. we've started to potentially be able to show that consciousness is individual or built up of a component of individual particles, and we know we've now proven entanglement, what Einstein called spooky action at a distance, so that we know that things across vast distances can still interact at the same time. And so I think that for me, although a lot of the paranormal can be explained in terms of physics, it doesn't make it not paranormal. It still is. But I think a lot of the strange things that we would call magic or ghosts or poltergeists, are actually just the inherent strangeness of quantum physics. But then also you've got other paranormal phenomena, which might be people's belief in things like cryptids or creatures, and that's kind of more into the sort of mythology area, and that's sort of like paranormal, I guess, zoology essentially. And then also a lot of people have started to class, like alien or ufology in with paranormal phenomena, even though that's quite a separate thing. So it's a broad area. But I think I've definitely, more kind of worked in although the history of mythology and the history of belief systems in and of themselves as a psychologist, but as a scientist, it's more into the actual science of anomalous events, like how does something pass through a wall, or how do objects get thrown from a table with no obvious force, essentially. So a chunk of it to me is, we know through, like we were talking about there, about entanglement. So is it that objects become entangled? Also, is it that something is able to enact a force upon it? So if we were to show, so you see these things that everyone has one now, where they're on your desk and it's magnets, so you'll have like a globe spinning. If you showed that to somebody 50 years ago, they would be like, that is black magic. Because we didn't understand how the electromagnetic fields worked. And so just because it's an unseen force doesn't mean that it's not there. We've started to dig into particles that we didn't know existed. So we got through into quarks and neutrinos and things like that. We're still trying to understand how certain particles, and we've shown it scientifically, can blip literally in and out of existence. How can things not have mass? A lot of the universe is made up of like dark matter, and we still don't really understand what that is. So a lot of it still looks like magic. How do particles blip in and out of existence? But we know that they do. So is it possible, if you had enough of these particles together, or something else that's governed by the same principles, has the same components, can it also blip in and out of existence?
It is clear that something is missing from quantum mechanics, because since the day it was conceived, we didn't have an intuitive understanding of what it means, how a wave function collapses, whether there are many realities at once, and somehow we managed, by doing an experiment, to go into one of them. It's quite possible that our lack of understanding of quantum mechanics at a deep level is because it doesn't incorporate gravity. And once gravity and quantum mechanics would be unified in a predictive theory, it will give answers to those questions as to what reality truly is.
I mean, this is very much the drive of the 20th century, actually. The optimism of the turn of the 20th century was very much, place enlightenment. We can fix all this stuff. And obviously Einstein comes along and just blows it out the water. Then quantum physics comes along, blows it up. And actually, we seem to be getting further than we ever were to a unified kind of understanding. We're getting deeper and deeper, and that's great, and we're learning. But in my view, CERN, breaking up little particles, hasn't brought us any closer to any real understanding. And I personally don't think it will, because you're dealing with the material realm. There's only going to be, whatever, just smaller particles. What more universes? I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of difference to me, to be honest.
If we talk about consciousness, as Evelyn kind of talks about, as almost a physical particle-based thing, then why could not AI either control particles in a way to become conscious?
Yeah. I guess if you go for that materialistic, reductionist viewpoint of life in the universe, absolutely, that fits in with that. But what I'm saying, I guess what religious people would say, is that there's more to us than just flesh and blood. There's something else.
Yeah.
I call that the divine spark.
when people say to me, you know, are you religious? Do you believe in God? I believe that we were created. And one thing that really sticks in my mind is the two scientists that discovered DNA. I've forgotten the name of one scientist. I think the other one's called Crick. Yeah.
Crick and Watson.
Well, yeah. Well, Crick said, I think it was Crick, could have been Watson, but he said that first of all, the DNA double helix actually turns in everybody's body. They all turn in exactly the same way. And he also said, which blew my mind, the DNA double helix strand wasn't created, it was engineered.
Wow.
And to me, that blows my mind, because I think here's the guy who discovered it. Very, very, you know, intelligent people, you know, they're saying that it was engineered. And I really believe that we were created by an alien race. Could be us in the future, I don't know. And I think they have created us, or they've messed with our DNA. And the fact that Crick and Watson actually said that we only use a tiny amount of the DNA, that's a tiny amount that's switched on, as is our brain. We only use a tiny percentage of our brain. So can you imagine what would happen if our DNA suddenly was switched on? Or, you know, our brain, all of it was switched on. I mean, it just, to me, blows my mind, literally.
I mean, there's another theory that no one's talked about really, and it's by one of my heroes, Arthur C. Clarke. He was one of the first serious scientists to look at unexplained phenomena. His brilliant TV show in the 70s. But he suggested that paranormal phenomena, especially ghosts, he was more aiming at, but it could be also put towards UFOs and things like that, things we see in the sky, is that the eye and the brain are kind of separate, and so what we're visualizing comes through a lens and is interpreted by the brain. Okay, so what we see comes through the lens and is interpreted by the brain. What he's suggesting is that ghosts, paranormal phenomena, basically, well, it's the brain sending out an image to the lens. So what we're actually perceiving comes from the brain, some stored memory. We don't consciously aware of it happening, but it's like a trip in the brain. So it's putting out a signal what we should see. So it's like a hallucination, effectively.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's another theory which it could be explored, I think. Well, it's the CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind movement, which Dr. Stephen Greer has been promoting, which says that, you know, we can all contact, this sounds crazy, isn't it? We can all contact these aliens just by using our own consciousness through meditation, getting together, meditating together, and you can put out the image in your mind of you directing, say, a UFO to come and visit you. And, you know, there are some cases documented on film where allegedly this has happened, which ties into this kind of psychic internet thing that we've got access to, other life forms in the universe have got access to, and that's how we're communicating with them.
One of the experiments that we had performed to see whether or not we could summon something within the forest happened on the 8th of June 1998 at precisely 10:15 p.m. at night, and we did what we considered then was, and we didn't really know much about it, was a CE5 initiative, and it worked. We summoned a UFO.
So that was through basically sort of meditation, is that right?
That was a week prior to our visit to the forest, because you know, it takes us roughly around about 2 hours to get from where we are in Bedfordshire to Suffolk. This was in the preceding months and years of investigation within this area of high strangeness. And so we had performed what they call a psychic experiment, and it came about by the idea from Karen Carpenter's song Calling Occupants. And I thought, I wonder if that's possible. And you know, as God is my witness, that's exactly what happened. On the 8th of June, 1998. And it's an experience that I will never forget. And people say, well, you know, I want evidence. Well, we agreed that whatever forces were responsible We wouldn't take any filming equipment. It was to be a very personal experience. But I must say here that even if I had, let's just consider a piece of the Roswell craft, and I showed that on the screen to people and say, I've got the evidence, no one would believe it. I think when you're dealing with the UFO subject at large, we have to look at several components, key components, not just the nuts and bolts physical structure of these objects, which we consider them to be, which in most cases they are, but also the other area as well with consciousness. So that was a really incredible event that occurred, and the UFO that appeared was not like your classic flying saucer or triangular craft. It was very much like a pyramidical shaped device with a gap and a circular undercarriage high above these trees that just appeared. There was an incredible light source coming from within the core of the pyramidical device, and the circular appendage that had a bank of blue lights around it. One moved one way, the other moved the other. So it was like a witch's hat, but the rim was separated. That was incredible, and I feel that looking into the area of Rendlesham, not just in Rendlesham, but other areas around the world, Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, Bempton, up north, we wanted to try and find out what it was about these areas that seemed to promote a lot of UFO activity or paranormal activity, which also seems to follow when UFOs or they've broken through to this matrix on some level. What is it about these places? So certainly in rural locations, there are levels of mysteries that confound us. On one event, we had a very disturbing thing happen to us where we would lay a blanket down through our central observation area, which was not far from Cattle Green, which is a big field. That's where the initial contact had occurred with the summoning of the UFO. But someone had left on the blanket when we'd gone off for a few minutes, a dead rat and a dead rabbit on the blanket from head to tail in a complete circle. And we knew when we come back, only after 10 minutes, that someone, or maybe something, had left it there as some kind of symbolism. And that is very strange.
I mean, I've been trawling through the US government archives this week. So much stuff the CIA investigated, remote viewing, astral projections. This is all, the evidence is all there for people to find out. These things are real. The CIA tested it. It works. They used it. There's things that can't be explained. How does a spy in America access a place in Russia just by lying down, going into meditative states, but then accessing information that's been verified it was correct? How is that explained?
Again, you know.
And this is the CIA. It's not some guy from YouTube. You know?
I know we keep going on about quantum entanglement, but there's parallels, isn't there? How do you, remote viewing, you can see something that's happening. How does an atom there, you know, hundreds of miles away affect an atom there?
And also, is it a thing where when you die, you've got to decompose? Is it that if consciousness is somehow in individual particles, they sort of spread out? Obviously, all energy is reused in the universe, and it spreads out. Is it that enough of it has to get back together for it to work? In the same way that a single magnet only has very little power, but if you put loads of them together, suddenly they have this great interaction and alteration. So that might be also one of the theories, is that there has to be enough of it together for something to happen.
Then I always think that what makes humans special is the power of our mind. We can control our minds, we can create our own, you know, our own world. I guess if you're talking about the Illuminati or whatever you want to call them, they don't want people to have that power, that they can actually make their own futures by, you know, impressing their thoughts on the world, their actions, something positive. So, you know, I genuinely believe that we can do that, and that's empowering, that's democratic, that's access to anyone. And, you know, it's called, some people call it the mental internet, the psychic ether. We can all tap into it, and this kind of goes into something we've talked about before, remote viewing. You know, being able to access this psychic internet to, you know, find out more about reality, what it really is, and that somehow it involves consciousness, and kind of consciousness is separate from the brain, separate from the body, and it's out there. And by being out there, we can communicate, tap into the mental internet, gain knowledge.
You know, I do think to a degree, yeah, if people were truly aware of their innate abilities, telepathy, ESP, self-healing, it would literally change the world, because they would realise they didn't need to look up to certain people or obey certain people. I've seen some miraculous things. I've been very blessed in. I've seen some miraculous things in my life that I know there's more to life than just this physical existence that we have here.
Go back to the down spacecraft thing and consciousness. What a lot of people have said, they've investigated downed UFOs allegedly, is that they can't be piloted physically. There's some mental thing to it. The CIA and the KGB were both investigating psychic powers, because they wanted to be able to power these craft, which they couldn't physically do. And they were convinced they could only be powered by some sort of mental force, which is why they, enlisted the likes of Uri Geller, who was tested by the CIA, was found to have these powers. They were using those powers because they wanted to, to power this spacecraft.
My understanding, if I may, is that we are all vessels for consciousness, like your mobile phone. And I give a good example here, because it starts off with a blank canvas that's filled in with information. And I think that perhaps it's possible that all of us are interlinked into a huge connection of consciousness. And each experience that we're going through in this life is a recording. And perhaps that we are part of something much larger, where we're all trying to discover more about ourselves through the source of where we've originated from. It is a theory nonetheless, but it does appear that other intelligences are very much interested in how we operate as human beings. Because if we look at the Greys, for instance, and taking an example here, they all seem to be clones. I'm not going to get into the argument of AI technology or anything like that. I'm not disputing that. But they're all, why are they interested in us as a reproductive species that they themselves apparently cannot reproduce? So I think that when we're looking into the phenomena, not just the nuts and bolts version, I think the system that we service will be at pains to reveal to the public, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have UFOs, and we even have their pilots on deep freeze. but we've got a problem. Because this force comes in and it can do what it wants to and then goes out again as leaving hardly any evidence. And I think that will freak a lot of people out, those that aren't like yourself and many other good folk out there, with some kind of level of understanding and a curious mind. I think that is something I think the system will be at pains to reveal to the public. And mind, I mean, the brain is merely an amazing organism which allows the consciousness to flow through and record. And it does appear that thought generates and creates our reality. So whether or not these other species, wherever they're coming from, whatever they are able to project themselves into our reality by creating, or through belief or a determination. So we can see that through consciousness plays an important part, because everything around us has been created by the mind. And I think now what's happening is that because these revelations are coming into place, this is exciting, because it's informing all of the public that we have been lied to. And if it's not just about UFO technology or UFO sightings or this big secret that's been covered up for God knows how many years, decades, but also about other areas. So I think we're beginning to realize that we are more than just flesh and blood creatures with a sell-by date that expires and that's it, consciousness extinguished. I think we're discovering that we're part of a much bigger and amazing connection outside of this physical realm that we currently inhabit.
You mentioned that there's a wave of UFO activity associated with collapse in the economy. What is the reason for that? During the Black Plague, which was in the 14th century, when you go and look through the records about the Black Plague and the books about the Black Plague, they keep referring to mysterious atmospheric phenomena occurring during the Black Plague. And they're describing UFO sightings. Oh, all these poor people were dying. There were all these mysterious things were buzzing around the skies of Europe. And it took them a long time to figure out that the flea was bringing them the Black Plague. But I think every time the human race is in jeopardy in any fashion, whether it's economically or militarily, we start seeing UFOs all over the place.
Possibly the US government, other governments, the Five Eyes, countries, they're covering something up. Because I don't think they would cover up the fact that it was alien life in another planet, because we're kind of used to that. We've been conditioned to that. Star Trek, Star Wars, etc.
Yeah.
We could deal with that. I think the truth is something far weirder. This is just my personal opinion on what I've researched and experienced. I think it's something far weirder, and that's why they want to keep a lid on it, because it would just blow our minds if it was other dimensions, if it was demons, if it was something far weirder than life forms like ourselves. That's possibly why they're keeping it secret. Maybe they can only access the divine through humanity.
Yeah.
The only way to God is through us, the Creator.
Yeah. The UAPs, I did one on the UAPs, and I think the UAPs are man-made. I think the whole thing's a scam. I don't think they're alien at all.
No.
I think it's man-made technology that they are passing off as extraterrestrial technology as another blind smoke and mirrors.
They want us to believe in aliens to keep us, distract us.
Yeah, from the reality that it's Chinese drones, it's whatever.
Yeah.
But when you look at all these reports and sightings, it does make you think. And the other thing is, why is the subject not on the school curriculum?
Well, maybe
why is that not? I think it is in the States.
Wow,
but yeah, so all I'm trying to do is educate people. I can't give any answers, but it is, as I think as Gordon Creighton said, it is one of the greatest phenomena of modern day times. Whether you are a skeptic or not, it is still the greatest phenomena of modern day times. And it is, isn't it?
It is.
Because the bloody things keep coming through. They do, don't they? Yeah, and that's it.
So, in your opinion, who knows the truth about what these things are? Does anyone?
It's a difficult question. So it's difficult to answer, rather. But one would presume that, given the amount of finances available to governments and the super intelligence of scientists, one would have thought they'd have come up with some ideas on this. And if they have come up with the ideas, what it is and where it comes from, well, I can tell you one thing, you and I aren't going to know, because it would cause too much disruption. It would actually. So on the one hand, yes, I want to get the messages across. Yes, I like you. I liked Discovery. I'd like us to be all lay our cards on the table, but in reality, it will not happen.
Whoever I think it's an earthly power, so governments, etc. Maybe the Illuminati, maybe not, but a kind of global conspiracy to try and control the human race.
Okay.
Really I mean, some of the recent things that have happened, COVID, for example, the move away from cash into like digital money.
Global ID, I guess.
Yeah.
Digital ID.
All setting us up to that point where we can, or they can control us.
So how does that work then? So doesn't this involve holograms convincing us that the world is coming to an end, that the second coming of Jesus Christ is coming? So they're going to project these holograms of Christ coming down from the clouds, a bit like an alien on a spaceship.
Yeah.
So people believe it's the end of the world, so then they can be controlled. Is that what we're saying, through fear?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
It sounds insane.
Project Bluebeam has been around for many years in terms of rumors circulating on the internet, and like all good conspiracy theories, it probably does have a few roots in reality, but probably not in the way that most people think. Simply put, Project Bluebeam is the idea that through a combination of maybe holographic projection technology Hollywood special effects and government or deep state spin and manipulation, you could create a false narrative. And the two examples that have been given are you could create basically a false flag alien invasion or a false flag second coming. And what this would then do, it would, rather like some people say, well, 9/11 led to the introduction of the Patriot Act and big state, deep state coming in and maybe taking some rights and freedoms that we previously had and dressing this up in the flag and dressing it up as national interest and the need for unity and the very extreme circumstances which temporarily, of course, mitigate for the setting aside of normal checks and balances and processes. And so this is Project Bluebeam, the idea that you could fake an alien invasion, for example, and then use it to manipulate populations and the New World Order takes over. I don't, frankly, believe it as told, but self-evidently all these things in their separate components do exist. There is holographic projection. We don't yet know how good it is because a lot of that's classified, but one hears rumors of the so-called ghost gun that can create very realistic portrayals of things. And of course, we all know spin exists in government. And of course, we've seen during COVID the way in which entire populations are manipulated, scared. I mean, fear is the key.
Christ is a kind of universal like trope almost, that everyone understands it, and I think people, if they're controlled to a certain extent, would quite like to believe in that, and that everyone knows the name Jesus. So
okay, so it's a bit like an alien invasion, but with Jesus coming down from the clouds.
Yeah,
to put us all into fear.
I think it will come in small drabs. I think we're going to hear a lot more about what people are revealing, but again, it won't be enough to convince the masses, because I don't think anything will today unless they did present themselves in our skies for all to see. And even then, people will say, oh, it's holographic technology, it's a faked alien invasion. So you can see how much this up here, we have to try and keep it grounded and not running off with all these other people with their thoughts and so-called conspiracies. Not everything is a conspiracy. I do believe that certain whistleblowers are telling the truth. They have nothing to lose, not all of them, but certainly a lot of them. So it is interesting to see where this is going to lead us in terms of revelation.
But main reasons I'd be skeptical. First of all, David Grush's claims aren't that new. And if you look into the history of ufology, there are certain watershed moments when apparently the most defining case was in front of us and we could do something about it. And so, for example, the Washington overflights of the 1950s, definitely claims about Roswell. There are the alien autopsy movie that some people believed in the mid-90s. They've all fallen apart or just disappeared.
This is the quest. I'm on a quest because I passionately believe that there is something unexplained. There's more to life than material reality and atoms. There's something else. And I think that something else could be used for the benefit of humankind, and not just for the few, not just for the rich, not just for the US military.
What I don't understand is, are they covering it up because they don't want to scare, what would be more scary is telling people that angels and demons exist.
I said this, we've got something that they need. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's our souls.
Seriously, I did investigate was on quite a few murders, but this fascinates me because here we are talking about something like this, and we want answers, and I just think, are we ever going to get those answers? And in a way, if we did get the answers, would that be actually what we want? Think about it. We'd probably be changed people, wouldn't we?
We've got the convergence of many things. We've got the advancement of AI. We've got the Hadron Collider, back to explore different dimensions. We've got disclosure in America. These are massive things all coming together at the same time. Is it coincidence? So maybe what's visiting us is not actually alive, it's AI.
AI, future humans.